At long last, after almost 2 years, we made it to the final season analysis of Game of Thrones, Season 3. I probably shouldn't have skipped over Seasons 2 and 3 initially upon doing this series, but hey, here we are. As usual though, for this season the writing, directing, acting, and every form of production is great, and I'll mainly be focusing on some unique aspects as to what makes Season 3 amazing. For most of the show, there's always a background conflict of politically charged betrayals, and to a lot of people this is always a major highlight of the show because it allows George R.R. Martin's writing to flourish. However, for the first time in Season 3, the primary driving conflict is politically motivated. As an example, Season 1 is a murder mystery, Season 2 is a battle underdog conflict, and Season 4 is another murder mystery. Season 3 is all about the political dance and trying to grab as much power as possible. In King's Landing, it's primarily the Lannisters versus the Tyrells, and the conflict between them is so fresh and unique because it isn't violent in any way. This is perfectly exemplified in Tywin and Olenna's showdown of determining the future of their houses. It at first comes across as a normal dialogue scene where they're talking about pairing their kids/grandkids together, but the second an air of doubt arises, they start to maneuver around each other, bringing up different pieces of dirt. And to combat this, these characters don't specialize in physical violence, and instead Tywin intelligently threatens to assign Loras Tyrell to the Kingsguard in an attempt to force Olenna to Tywin's terms.
Shall I draw up the order, or do you consent to this match?
It's a rare enough thing. A man who lives up to his reputation.
To me, clever solutions figured out by smart characters is extremely entertaining and can make the writing feel like it's teeming with wit. Also, not only is this type of conflict within King's Landing, it's also infected the entirety of the Battle of the Five Kings. Season 2 is a lot more action-oriented, but Season 3 takes a step back and allows the war to be fought in a different manner. This is true for both Robb Stark and Stannis Baratheon, and it acts as a great change of pace for Seasons 1 and 2. We see Stannis at one of his lowest points, reeling from the loss of King's Landing, trying to desperately find purpose within the Lord of Light. This offers a great juxtaposition for the character Davos, who acts as more of the angel on Stannis' shoulder in comparison to Melisandre. And to perfectly build to a great climax, George R.R. Martin sets up a test in which Stannis has to make the decision to sacrifice Gendry to gain an advantage in the war. So all at once with this brilliant writing, we get crazily intriguing conflict, characters having to make groundbreaking decisions, and actions that affect the kingdom as a whole.
What is the life of one bastard boy against a kingdom?
Then for Robb Stark, the action starts to slow down, since Tywin is trying to not engage with Robb on the field, so this allows there to be some new conflict. Namely, the two biggest things being the discord among his officers, and his relationship with the Freys. This also ties into the political intrigue Spike, because his relationship with other northern houses is integral for his victory against the Lannisters. And if he can't manage that, then he'll lose the war. So oddly enough, the stakes are just as high dealing with his own allies than they are against his enemy, similar to what is happening in King's Landing between the Lannisters and the Tyrells. And it's interesting because the major downfall of Robb Stark isn't his strength in military mind, but his lack of political understanding, making blunder after blunder in which he executes Rickard Stark, thus alienating the Karstarks, which are a big part of his army, and him trusting the slimy Freys after he broke his vow. It is sad to witness this, but no character can constantly go on within the story without making mistakes, especially since actions have consequences, and by Robb following his heart and marrying Talissa, he doomed himself. So even though the conflict isn't as drastic as Season 2, Season 3 is still able to create engaging conflict without any form of reliance on action. A big reason why Season 2 may feel like one of the weaker seasons of the first 4 is that Jon and Daenerys didn't have that great of a story. However, now that they have found their footing more as characters thanks to Season 2, they're able to have much more fun and progress in a more satisfying manner. And by this I mean, you probably weren't that engaged by Dany being stuck in Karth and not really being able to get closer to her overall goal of building an army and getting to Westeros. Season 3 perfectly satisfies this, and George achieves this in such a spectacular fashion that the payoff feels orgasmic. Dany getting the Unsullied is easily one of the best scenes because of the sheer payoff for 3 seasons of everyone waiting for Dany to pop off on someone and accumulate more power. And this isn't just good because it's satisfying payoff, but it's also written expertly in which freeing the slaves ties into Daenerys' overall goal of liberating and freeing everyone held under tyranny. So there's subtext under this twist, and it's also great how the audience wasn't aware of Dany's plan, to make this development even more surprising. Through the course of Season 3 for Dany, there's also a major injection of more characters, which was much needed because the only dynamic we really had before this was with Ser Jorah. And his dynamic with Dany is great, it's just that you need to offer up more characters so that you can have a larger variety of interactions. Like we end up getting Ser Barristan Selmy, Missandei, Grey Worm, and Daario to spruce things up. Ser Barristan offers a great perspective given that he served Dany's father, and any interaction he has with her is insightful on top of it also being wholesome. Missandei offers a much needed casual avenue that Dany can utilize since every interaction she has is normally tied to her conquest. Grey Worm may seem like the most dull out of these characters, but he can still be pretty cute considering that his surrounding characters tend to dismantle his more professional demeanor. Then lastly we have Daario, who acts as a love interest, and he doesn't just add that, but that introduces a conflict in which Ser Jorah also loves Dany, despite him not being able to pursue that. So Daario's presence is like constant turmoil for poor old Ser Jorah. All of these characters makes the dialogue encounters surrounding Dany much more complex and varied, and is something I think most people may overlook. Then, we don't just have a major improvement for Daenerys, but we also have Jon Snow getting a major upgrade. In the last season analysis, I argue that his journey beyond the wall felt lackluster because he didn't have much to do, and now that in Season 3 he's emerged within the Free Folk, it makes every scene he's in utterly entrancing because the story can go in any direction and the stakes are really high. Will Jon be discovered as a spy? Will he grow more sympathetic towards their cause? And will he end up falling in love with Ygritte? Or will he uphold his vows to the Night's Watch? These developments are already significantly more than what happened in Season 2, where it felt like he was idly waiting for something big to happen. Then, this also thoroughly changes Jon as a character, as his entire outlook on the wildlings changes. I love the opening scene with Mance, where at first Jon is trying to give some bullshit response as to why he wants to join them, but then he digs deeper for why he really should join them.
Thousands of years ago, the first men battled the White Walkers and defeated them. I want to fight for the side that fights for the living. Did I come to the right place?
This singular moment establishes a great internal conflict for Jon of wanting to help the Free Folk while also not wanting to kill his brothers, something that is explored more later on once they go over the wall. It's a perfect seed that's planted that leads to an outstanding resolution through the Watchers on the Wall and Hardhome. To me, this is why Jon's Season 3 through 5 journey is by far his peak in the show, because when he's being torn apart between his love of Ygritte and the duty to his brothers, it makes for an amazing conflict, especially since it was set up in Season 1 with Maester Aemon's quote,
"Love is the death of duty."
So when we go from a great internal struggle interlaced with an equally good plot, to the later seasons where he basically just becomes a hollow drone where he only cares about beating the Night King, you can see a clear drop-off. And it's also ironic that Jon's internal conflict with the Free Folk in the Night's Watch somehow manages to greatly surpass his Targaryen identity crisis in Season 8, thanks to good old David and Dan. I think in Season 3, the crazy Lannister family dynamic was at its best, just barely beating out Season 4 because Tyrion was kind of locked away for the whole season. Now, we are technically missing Jaime in Season 3 for the King's Landing story, but I think the dynamic between Tyrion, Cersei, and Tywin is practically perfect and is present throughout the entirety of the season. And it's not like Jaime isn't being well utilized this season, given that he has his all-time best scene with Brienne, where he spills the truth about the Mad King. But going back to King's Landing, the beauty of it is that it's a capital in which so many characters intertwine and have a chance to interact with each other. And by bringing in a collection of rich and complex characters that have layers of background with each other, it's going to lead to outstanding dialogue scenes.
Influence grows like a weed.
Any man who must say, "I am the king," is no true king.
Chaos is a ladder.
In the first episode alone, we have one of Tyrion and Tywin's best scenes together, in which Tywin is being truthful about how he feels about Tyrion. It's utterly tragic, and the once confident Tyrion is reduced to a scared child as his father castrates him verbally.
You are an ill-made, spiteful little creature, full of envy, lust, and low cunning. But neither gods nor men will ever compel me to let you turn Casterly Rock into your whorehouse.
And this is all after Tyrion is just looking for some praise from his heroic acts in the Battle of the Blackwater. To me, Tywin and Tyrion is the best rivalry in the show because of the pure conflict between them. A father that fundamentally hates his child while that child desperately craves his approval, and instead constantly gets beaten down by him. And it also makes it even better that these are the two best characters in the show, and Tywin in particular is the most powerful man alive, so having an intimate relationship with this figure is infinitely intriguing. I'm kind of gushing about Tyrion and Tywin right now, and there's also, you know, another magnificent character that's included in this dynamic, which is Cersei. A character who was once dominant in King's Landing for the first 2 seasons, is put in check by her father, is definitely an interesting change of pace for her. Especially during the explosive scene where Tywin's so fed up with his children and not wanting to comply with the Tyrells that he screams at them and asserts his Chad dominance.
You're my daughter! You will do as I command, and you will marry Loras Tyrell.
This also brings up a point of relation since Tyrion and Cersei are both subjected to their father, so they stop fighting each other and grow a bit closer. Their scenes together this season are so moving, especially since Tyrion can even relate to the fact that now he's starting a quote-unquote family with Sansa, so he can kind of relate to Cersei's family drama. This unlocks that rare dialogue where Cersei opens up about her kids and becomes more warm and intimate with Tyrion, and I find these types of moments extremely juicy.
How happy would you say you are?
Not very. But if it weren't for my children, I'd have thrown myself from the highest window in the Red Keep.
So although for Season 3 there isn't a major plot-driven device like an upcoming war or a sprawling murder mystery to inherently up the excitement factor, I think the season is still able to compete with the others because of how it's still able to be extremely engaging with its complex characters hashing out intimate issues. After Season 1 of Game of Thrones, you think, wow, George R. Martin just played the biggest Uno reverse card in cinema history by killing the main protagonist, and there is no way it'll happen again. Oh no, Pepe laugh. We were so naive going into Season 3. The Red Wedding is definitely the best scene in the show, and I've talked about it a lot, and so have other people. However, I can't make a Season 3 analysis without going into it. Now, to throw the obvious things out first, the technical makeup of the scene is perfect. From the acting, the writing, delivery, pace, tone, everything about the scene is executed at such an amazing degree. For me, the personal standout is Michelle Fairley's performance as Catelyn, and her extreme reaction to the death of her son exudes a haunting layer of dread and shock that traumatizes everyone in the audience. Thanks to George R. Martin making such an expansive and sprawling story with dozens of major characters, he can do something like this, and not completely damage the story beyond repair. You look at any other show and the cast of characters is normally just a handful, and because of that fact, you can't do anything major with them without ruining the story. This is why Game of Thrones is special. With such a huge cast, George R. Martin can play with the set foundations of storytelling and make it seem like certain characters are going to be the main character, only to swipe out the rug. This makes every character have an aura of danger and suspense around them, because we don't know how safe they are and whether the story will continue for them. This is why I think the later seasons of the show really fall off, not to mention the writing, because once you get a set number of main characters that you know will make it to the end, you can slowly start to see their plot armor and any danger around them evaporates, making the show have less tension. The Red Wedding is a major reminder of danger and doesn't just impact one storyline, but makes the viewer worry about everyone. So not only is this scene an achievement in storytelling, it causes a massive ripple effect in how you view the show as a whole, making it a complete masterpiece. So yeah, those 4 unique reasons are why I think Season 3 stands out and is amazing. Thank you guys so much for watching through this series, and if you haven't seen my other season analysis videos, then you can check them out in the end screen playlist. And since it's also been 2 years since I started this series, I feel like I drastically changed, so it may be a bit jarring going back to some of my earlier video essays. But regardless, have a great day.